Well, interviews for a new commissioner for the Independent Electoral Commission have concluded today. Now, this is a candidate who would possibly step into the shoes of chairperson Glenn Mashini. Now, the candidate being interviewed is not necessarily going to be the new chair of the IEC, but rather a new commissioner. That is what is being dealt with now. The interview panel, chaired by the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, quizzed candidates today on various themes, including challenges to the IEC's independence, as well as potential threats to its credibility. Newzroom Afrika's senior reporter, Tumaole Mohlaoli, was at the interviews and joins me now live in studio. Tumaole, I was just talking about some of the issues raised, and one of them had to do with voter turnout. Young people, as we know, in our elections in the last, decade and a half, have shown up in smaller numbers in every election. Why is that, and why was that such a crucial question for the panel?
It was a crucial question for the panel, Tembegile, because what the panel wanted to see and want to gauge was how the incumbents or those who were being interviewed would handle the issue of turning around youth apathy. I found the responses to be quite interesting because most of those panelists were basically responding to say that the IEC's role is, of course, one of voter education and, of course, raising awareness and trying to encourage people and get them excited about voter registration drives. But apart from that, they really can't do much in terms of the social conditions that are contributing in terms of the youth or voter apathy. Now, what we saw in the previous local government elections was that people were basically not interested in going to the polls in their numbers, as we've seen in previous polls. One, because many felt that they did not have any faith in the political system. Many were complaining quite bitterly about their living conditions only getting worse in the 21 plus years since the democratic dispensation.
Something else then that was being spoken about is modernizing the IEC. There's also been a lot of conversation to that effect, especially last year in November when we had the local government elections, about how digital we should go and how soon.
Indeed, and in terms of the IEC's processes, the candidates were saying that they do believe that South Africa does have the infrastructure in place to go fully digital. Now, the interviewers, including, of course, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, were very direct in their questions, saying that, there is still quite a big divide between the haves and the have-nots in South Africa, with South Africa still being a developing economy, but of course, with the poverty line seeming to increase further and further, those living beneath the poverty line, saying that how can the IEC look to modernize in terms of course, the digital reach and trying to reach people in digital platforms, as many of the candidates were saying is the way forward, and in terms of digitizing their own processes, because many of the candidates were arguing that in order to secure the credibility of the election process and the elective results post the elective process, one has to then move into the digital era. Many were citing several developed countries like in Europe and of course in the US and other developed nations, saying that the IEC's vision should be to emulate those particular voting processes where they are paperless voting processes. But of course the question was, does the IEC or does the South African infrastructure at the disposal of the IEC have the right kind of a space and have the right kind of technology to reach even those who are living in far-flung rural areas where, of course, data itself is quite a problem. And many said they believe that this would be a challenge that they can overcome, and coming up with very unique and very creative ways to say that there could be partnerships with perhaps the private sector, and many of the candidates also listing some of the very advanced and very creative ways with which they have managed to move the various institutions which they have been part of into the first world digital era. So certainly a lot of visionaries before the panel today, and many who believe that the IEC is ready to go away from paper, which caused much controversy, of course, during that particular municipal local government elections, whereby there were allegations of ballots being stuffed in ballot boxes and ballot boxes being found abandoned at various points away from voter stations, which would have called the question or the electoral process into question. However, with digitization, all of those problems would then be done away with. This was the view, and they believe it can be done.
And let's talk about one particular candidate, Glenn Mashinini. These interviews are happening, of course, because his 7-year term comes to an end mid-April. He is seeking reappointment. Why?
He's seeking reappointment because, in his view, he believes that he is the right candidate to move the IEC forward. He says that in his previous term, of course, COVID-19 presented challenges that were in many circles viewed as insurmountable, but he believes through his leadership and through the support of his team, he managed to deliver what was a credible election despite those seemingly insurmountable odds. And he says that with those lessons learned and, of course, with a new team in place and with his vision, he can take the IEC to a next level in terms of voter participation, in terms of tackling youth apathy, in terms of sensitizing the greater population of South Africa about the importance of the electoral process, because part of the IEC's mandate is, of course, to educate the electorate, those who qualify and those who are coming into age, so to speak, about the importance of being a responsible and an active citizen when it comes to the electoral process.